This is Big Tasty Sports.
Welcome to the NFL Futures Report for July 19th. We are going to walk through a few different sections, going to try to get a little tighter with how we approach this as we get nearer to the NFL season. This is a show that I'll be doing once a week through the season. I've been doing it every other week or so leading up to it. And we're going to walk through a few different things today. Going to talk about lines that have moved, where there are some outliers, some narratives that are going on in the NFL right now. And then at the end, I'm going to wrap up with 3 bets. If you want to just go to the bets, check the timestamps. I will put in there what time those start. So if that's all you want, you can get that. A few things before we get into it. First of all, in all of these categories, I'm just hitting the highlights. I'm not doing everything. However, if you want to get all the information from these different categories, go to bigtastysports.com, and on the blog there, the full futures report will be available. And so I'll do that every time I do a video. I'll put out these different categories and the full report on all the different teams. Really, what I'm sharing with you is the highlights, and I would say that it is anywhere between 10 and 20% of the full report. So go to bigtastysports.com and you can check that out. Also, I've talked about this before, but if you're newer to the channel, I am really focused on building a strong futures portfolio. There is a difference between making a couple futures bets and building a futures portfolio, just like there would be in stock trading, though I am much more amateur in that than I am on the sports betting side. But part of it is building up different positions so that you can come back with other things later. It is getting things at the right line, not taking them at the wrong line, all that kind of stuff. So I have already placed 30 futures bets, and I just went back through before recording this video, and so far I only have one line that has moved against me out of the 30. Some of them have stayed the same. I believe that there were around 20 of them where they've moved in my direction so far, and then 9-ish that have stayed the same. The one that moved against me is the Green Bay under. We're actually going to talk about that some through the video today. But if you go to Big Tasty Sports and click on futures at the top, it'll tell you all the stuff that I'm doing with futures. And you can subscribe to get all my bets and a lot of extra material, the dashboard that I've done videos on before, for $10 a month. Fairly low cost. And if you look in the show description, you can get 25% off for the first 3 months right now if you would like to jump on board, so you can check it out, and you can cancel at any time. It's not like a commitment thing, obviously. So if you're interested in building out a futures portfolio or just seeing all the bets that are there and getting access to the dashboard and different tools that I'm putting together, go and check that out. Last thing is, I would really appreciate if you could like the video and also leave me a comment. What's a futures bet you like right now? Would love to see what people are thinking in terms of those bets that are out there. All right, all that said, let's jump into the futures report. The first thing we're going to talk about is the movers. These are lines that are moving, and a little bit about what that tells us about these teams or about these lines. The first one's the Atlanta Falcons. The over 8.5 has gone, not a big move here, -112 to -115. Oh, by the way, when I'm sharing these lines, I am running these lines at 5 different books. I update that weekly right now. I will update it multiple times per week during the season. And so all the lines you see here are ones that I am pulling from the best available. And so that's why if you went and looked at, the over-under, it wouldn't necessarily work out exactly the way that it normally would on a book, because I'm pulling the best lines on every bet or every position from those 5 different books. So the over hasn't moved that much, though it is a little bit worse price than it's been. The under has moved more, though, from +100 to +120. And the best odds you can get on the Falcons to win the division has gone from +240 to +225. So obviously it's getting a little bit more expensive to bet on the Falcons to be good. Talked about this in the NFC South video. You can go back and check that out if you're on the YouTube channel or on the podcast and get the whole breakdown. But I'll just say briefly here, the Falcons did a lot to improve their roster over in the offseason, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And while they're probably not going to be a phenomenal defense, I think that this can move them from being a terrible defense to an okay one. And on offense, they have a lot of weapons. A lot of it's going to come down to Desmond Ridder. And like a lot of other teams we've talked about recently in the NFL, the Packers, a lot of these teams with young quarterbacks or unproven quarterbacks, you don't know for sure what you're going to get. And that's definitely true with Desmond Ridder. He could be a total flop, but if he can just play okay football, they have a lot of weapons there, and a lot of their weapons are running based, and they have a good offensive line. So he's not going to have to carry too much of the load. If this were a team that was going to have to rely on the pass offensively, I would be more skeptical. This is a team where I already have a position at over 8 wins. I don't think over 8.5 is terrible here, but it is getting more expensive if you're interested in the Falcons. So that's the first one that has been moving. Number 2 is the Packers. They're over. This is the one I said at the beginning where the line has moved against me. I bet under 7.5. Oops. And I didn't update. That should be under 7.5, not 8.5. Got to get my graphics game together. But over 7.5 from plus 101 to minus 112. So a fairly significant move, especially when you consider these are the best lines available, not just at one book. And the under 7.5 has gone from plus 100 to plus 115. I took that at plus 101, I believe. So I am not on the better side of the line at the moment. And then for them to win the division has gone from plus 500 to plus 400. So across the board, it is getting more difficult to bet on the Packers if you think that they are going to be better than projected. I'm going to actually talk more about the Packers when we get to the narrative section, so I'm not going to do too much with that now, but that is the second team that is on the move when you look at the books. Final one here, no surprise, DeAndre Hopkins signed by the Titans, so you would expect that to move the line. What's actually shocking to me at this point is that it didn't move the lines more. Over 7.5 has gone from plus 115 to plus 110, so you're not having to pay much more there to take the over. Under 7.5 from minus 125 to minus 120, you're not getting much of a break, and their division odds have gone from plus 425 to plus 380, so a little bit of movement there. The Titans are just a team, and we'll get to a full breakdown of them when we get to their division, but I just don't know how much they have there. Now, getting DeAndre Hopkins obviously is a huge help, but we'll see with his age and all of that. Obviously, he's a good receiver. Can he still be a great receiver? That's the question. And I would say to this point, with the movement that we've seen, the books are not saying that it makes a massive difference in terms of him being there, though obviously it's a little bit of a benefit. So that's the Titans, the third team that are on the move. Part of the reason I share this stuff too is if you are interested in, let's say you want to bet the over on the Titans, probably best to get it now. If anything, that may move more, but you can kind of read into that what you will. Obviously, I have my opinions. I do not have a crystal ball to tell me for sure what will happen. I would expect this line to continue to move in the direction that it has been a little bit more. I don't know that it'll be massive, but there is also some narrative stuff here on them, not just gaining DeAndre Hopkins. So if you like them, maybe now is the time to jump on. All right, that is the movers that I'm going to highlight for this video. The next thing I want to highlight is some outliers. This is where there's one line that just doesn't fit with the others. And these are important because if you like any of the lines that I'm about to share, you're going to want to go and grab those at the book where it's an outlier, because eventually the market tends to come into alignment. You basically see one of two things when there's an outlier. Either that outlier is leading the way, which means that all the other books are going to come into alignment with it eventually, or that line has not been updated to match all of the other books yet, and it won't be around very long. And I'll try to give you my take on which way these outliers are going. But again, if you do like the line that I'm highlighting as an outlier, then you would probably want to go grab it sooner rather than later. Also, I am not saying that these are things that I would bet. My point here is just to highlight the things that are outliers, though I'll try to give you a sense. So the first one is actually going back to the Atlanta Falcons, and it's the under 8.5. Across the board right now, the small numbers I have there, plus 100, plus 100, plus 100, and minus 105. I told you I look at 5 different books, and so those are the 4 lines that are sort of setting the market. You can see how those are pretty close, but at BetOnline, it's plus 120 to get the under 8.5. That's really solid. In my opinion, I don't know that there will be a lot more steam on Atlanta. I think they've kind of settled into where they are. But my guess would be that that outlier line here would eventually come into more of alignment with the rest of the market, and under 8.5 ends up settling around plus 100. I think the 8.5 is where the Falcons are likely to stay in terms of their over under. And as I shared, I already took over 8. I don't hate the over 8.5. However, you're obviously going to be paying juice, and I don't love that on a team that, has high upside, I think, but also if Ritter ends up not being good, they definitely have some downside as well. Next outlier is the Dallas Cowboys under 9.5 across the board. And you can see here, I only have 3 other lines, plus 125, plus 124, and plus 123. And that's because DraftKings and BetOnline both have this at plus 140. This one is a little bit different because I think, if anything, there may be a growing sense that the Cowboys could be good, especially if Dak doesn't turn the ball over too much. That's actually my opinion. We're going to come back to the Dallas Cowboys as one of the 3 bets that I'm going to share at the end, so I'm not going to hit exactly on that now. But this is one where I actually would expect those 3 other books eventually to move toward DraftKings and BetOnline. So if you do like the under 9.5, I would even potentially wait on it, because I think, if anything, you get a better and better price on that rather than a worse one. We may even see this get to an under 10.5 at some point. We'll see if we ever get there or not. Next, we have the Denver Broncos. Their over line, over 8.5, is at plus 106 on FanDuel. On the other books, it's minus 105, minus 110, minus 110, and minus 118. So you're getting a pretty good price there at FanDuel. Haven't done the full deep dive into the Broncos yet, as we're just starting to move through the different AFC divisions. But I will say that I tend to think that I'll like the Broncos. This is not something that I've bet yet, nor am I betting it right now, because I want to do that deeper dive before I would take any positions on a team. But it seems more likely to me that FanDuel moves into alignment with the rest of the market than the other way around. So far, to me, it seems that DraftKings and BetOnline tend to set the market a little bit more. I'm sure that is not always true. So if you like the over 8.5 on the Broncos, I would say that you'd want to consider going and grabbing that plus 106 that's out there right now. But again, for the reasons I shared, I am not grabbing that yet. We've got, let's see, a couple more here. Maybe we got the Patriots under 7.5. It is minus 105 at BetOnline. On the other books, minus 120, minus 122, minus 125, and minus 130. It feels to me like there's starting to be a little bit of positivity around the Patriots. I don't mean a lot. I don't mean that people are coming out and saying, oh, the Patriots might have a good chance to win this division or anything like that. But I think people are starting to say, hey, this is still a really good defense. They still have Bill Belichick. They've got O'Brien as an offensive coordinator now. Maybe he can help with Mac Jones and their offense can be better. And maybe this is a team that really is competitive. And 7.5 might be a break. So I think that this line is likely to move toward BetOnline, where you get a better price on an under and a worse price on an over. We'll see if I'm right about that. This is another one that I have not bet and do not have plans to at the moment. And then this is the last one, Tampa Bay Buccaneers under 6.5. Man, you got to lay some juice to go under right now. Minus 140, minus 142, minus 143, and minus 145. There is still a minus 130 out there at BetMGM. I took this under at a better price. Man, minus 130 is pushing it. They don't have a quarterback, and that's what it comes down to. Their defense should be okay still. The question is, do they get rid of some pieces before the trade deadline? I think that that's possible. I think they may go into a rebuild here. They've got some older pieces. Do they even trade off Evans or Godwin or pieces like that? I don't know the answer, but I think that there are reasons to like an under on Tampa Bay, and at minus 130, I would still consider, I would probably go smaller than what I did in betting Tampa Bay at that price, but I don't think under 6.5 is terrible. The one thing that is a negative here is their division is not phenomenal, and so maybe they can pull out some wins over some mediocre teams. In the Panthers, Falcons, and Saints, even if those teams end up being kind of good, they're not going to be world beater good, and so they're susceptible to losing to a team even like the Bucks. But if anything here, I definitely like the under more than the over. All right, so that's the movers and the outliers. Want to talk about three narratives now, because these narratives can affect lines, and I think in this case they are affecting lines. So the first one, a couple that we already mentioned. One is the Titans, and this is Hopkins coming. I also do think that there is sort of this sense of, hey, the Titans are a veteran team. They tend to always pull through, although they did not pull through at all at the end of last season. They completely fell apart. Maybe they get a little bit healthier. There could also be a part of this that is, you have Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. We'll see if Gardner Minshew plays at all or not. But if not, you've got him, and then you've got C.J. Stroud in Houston. And I think there's a sense that even though Houston should be better, they're still rebuilding. And so it's sort of like, okay, the Titans should be near the top of this division. There's an interesting thing going on here where I feel like there's some negative narrative happening with Jacksonville. I actually hope these lines on Jacksonville come the other way, and I could bet more on them. I don't understand how Jacksonville isn't. Well, they are the prohibitive favorite in this division right now. Let me say that. They are the prohibitive favorite. But I think they rightly are the prohibitive favorite, even with Hopkins joining the Titans. I just don't think it moves the needle that much offensively and defensively. I just think there's a lot more positive in Jacksonville than anywhere else. So the Titans are a team that I'm going to be staying away from, but there is some positive narrative around them right now, and I think it extends beyond just signing DeAndre Hopkins. The second one, another one that I talked about a little bit already, the one that's maybe funniest to me, and I don't mean that it's wrong, I just mean that it's funny, and that is the Packers. All of a sudden, you're starting to see people pop up saying, oh, the Packers, that they might win this division. Oh, man, this team might not fall off that much. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is getting old. Jordan Love is young. And listen to what all his teammates are saying about him. Well, what are his teammates saying about him? I'm sure there's plenty of comments I haven't seen, but I was looking specifically at the comments by A.J. Dillon about Jordan Love, and they were absolutely very positive. What they had the most to do with, though, was leadership. He basically said when people step in the huddle, they listen to him, they'd run through a wall for him, and that's really good stuff. I mean, you've had Aaron Rodgers there, who is not everyone's cup of tea. In fact, he's not many people's cup of tea, I think, after a while. And so having somebody that the team believes in, that they like, that they want to play for, that's all positive, and I'm not disputing that. The reality is, though, when it comes to Jordan Love's play, we don't know anything. And even to me, those comments from A.J. Dillon are a bit of a negative. He wasn't talking about what a great quarterback he is. He was talking about what a great leader he is. And being a great leader is important and helpful, but you have to be a good quarterback too. This is a guy that had some problems turning the ball over in college, and even in the NFL when he's played, he's had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I just think it is a dicey proposition to take a few people saying nice things about Jordan Love in the preseason and all of a sudden think that this team isn't going to take some steps backwards. I don't know that I'll do it. I actually thought about hedging out of my position. That's the under 7.5, because I do think that the Packers should have a pretty good defense. They still have some good offensive pieces and really a pretty good young offensive skill group. So a lot falls on Jordan Love here, sort of like Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. I think those teams are somewhat similar, to be honest. I mean, different in terms of the exact weapons that they have, but similar in terms of the good pieces they have in place. So I'm not confident the Packers are going to go under 7.5, but I do think there is a lot of variance here. And I think that the steam or the narrative is not completely warranted, especially when it comes to Jordan Love. And then the last one is one that hasn't really come to fruition yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. And that is that the Jets are going to be on Hard Knocks. Aaron Rodgers is not pumped about it. If you have listened to his comments, I don't think really anyone on the team is. They basically got forced to do it. But when a team's on Hard Knocks, everybody looks at it. Oh, this guy that they picked up off waivers, who's a fourth teamer, I love his story, and look at the talent that he's got. And he made that one big play in practice, and all of a sudden you think the Jets are going to be world beaters. So there could be some narrative steam around the Jets coming as they are on Hard Knocks. When we get to the AFC East breakdown video, I will certainly talk more about them. And I do like the Jets this year, but I'm going to be skeptical of betting them early on just because of the narrative with Aaron Rodgers. And now with Hard Knocks, I think you're going to be paying a little bit of a tax to get in on the Jets early. All right, so those are the narratives that I'm seeing right now as they relate to futures. I want to wrap up here with 3 bets that I have made and do like. Obviously, I am never telling you that you need to go run out and bet them, but if you agree with me, you might want to jump on board. And if you disagree, all the best to you, and tell me why. I don't mind that. First one, going back to Dallas. I told you one of them would involve Dallas. I don't really like paying juice, but I'll do it when I think that it's just truly the right side or mispriced, as you should, right? So the first one is Dallas over 9.5 wins. You can get this minus 150 at BetMGM. When you look at the market, right now you can still get 152 at BetRivers, 154 at FanDuel, but then it jumps up 165 at DK and 170 at BetOnline. And if you remember what I said earlier, DK and BetOnline, in my experience, tend to lead the market more, and the rest tends to come into alignment with it. And so I look at that and think minus 165 and 170 at those books, this line's probably moving. And at some point, you may not even be able to get an over 9.5 unless it's an alternate line. So I bet enough to win 2 units on Dallas over 9.5 at minus 150. Go listen to the NFC East breakdown video if you want a more in-depth breakdown, but I think that this team is really good across the board and can even challenge the Eagles in the NFC East this year. The other 2 that I have are player props. I'll start with the one sticking with the Cowboys. It is a Cowboy player prop, and that's Dak Prescott under 13.5 interceptions at minus 110 on DraftKings. Dak threw a crap ton of interceptions last year. He missed a couple games and still had 15. Really bad. Talked about this on another video, but again, if you didn't hear that, one of the turnover metrics that I do is interceptions per pass. And without walking you through the number specifically, Dak last year was more than twice as bad as he has been in any other season that he has had in the NFL. So I believe that season was an outlier and that there should be some positive regression there, even if Dak still turns the ball over more than he should. 13.5 is the highest interception total in the NFL on any quarterback on DraftKings right now. And Dak has never gone over 13 except for last year. So there are a lot. Here's the other thing. Talk about betting overs or unders and how on player props unders can be better. What if Dak gets hurt and is out for 7 or 8 games? Well, then that under is a good look as well. So I like under 13.5 interceptions if he plays every game, let alone if he sits out some. So I did only bet enough to win 1 unit on this so far. I'm actually considering adding more to that, but I want to think about it a little bit more. But I did take enough to win 1 unit on Dak under 13.5 interceptions. And then the last one I'm going to give you is Kayvon Thibodeau over 5.75 sacks on DraftKings at minus 110. We talked about this on the NFC East video. Good reason to tune into those videos. By the way, what I'm about to say, I am not saying any video I did moved any line. That is not my point. But just saying where we can identify good spots, I'm sure there are others looking at it too, and lines can move. So this was over 4.75 sacks, and it was minus 125, I believe, where I got it. And now it's my 5.75. It's at minus 110. So you're paying a little bit less juice, but it is another sack. I expect Kayvon Thibodeau to get to at least 8 sacks this year. So I still think over 5.75 is a really good look, a really good bet. I bet enough to win 2 units at over 4.75. But man, I think that's a really good one. Obviously, with the over bets, you have the danger of injury there, and I don't want to discount that. But I think even if he can play 10, 11, 12 games, he's got a good shot at this. Obviously, it hurts the chances, but I think it's still a good shot. That is the NFL Futures Report. Leave me a comment. Let me know what futures you like, where you see things the same, where you see them different. I'm always looking to learn too, and I appreciate people who have been leaving comments on different videos with their take and why they think what they think. So do that, and I will talk to you again soon.